pledge to you.
In the final weeks leading up to the U.S. presidential election, Republican nominee Donald Trump has spent millions on this ad campaign.
Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
The online and TV advertisements in battleground states attack Trump's Democratic rival Kamala Harris, saying she supports taxpayer-funded transgender health care for prison inmates and men in women's sports. The two are hot-button talking points in a broader campaign against transgender rights. But how significant is the issue?
Transgender insanity, the hell out of our schools.
Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance frequently bring the topic up at rallies and in interviews.
But me personally, keep men out of women's sports.
At one such Vance rally in Portage, Michigan, Trump supporter Richard Merrill said it is Democrats who keep the issue on the political agenda, quote, because they've got no policy.
Transgender, I think it's a scam anyway.
Personally, I do identify as non-binary, so I use they, them pronouns, so I find it a little comical. I think it's a little funny.
In Grand Rapids, barista Clay Eiley says the Republican ads just reinforce his support for Harris.
It's intentionally trying to alienate the transgender community.
However, political analysts say transgender rights are rarely mentioned when voters are asked about their top election issues.
I think it's not something that most voters think about.
Paul Beck is a professor emeritus of political science at The Ohio State University.
But they feel that here is a cultural issue that they can take advantage of and put the Democrats or the Democratic candidates in a difficult position.
In a recent interview on Fox News, Harris defended her position, saying she would follow the law, which ensures health care for prison inmates, including gender-affirming care. She noted that the U.S. Bureau of Prisons made such treatments available under Trump's administration as well. A CNN poll released on Wednesday showed Harris leading Trump by 48% to 43% among likely voters in Michigan. Other polling shows a dead heat going into Tuesday's election.
For decades, historically black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, have played a prominent role in elections. This year is proving no different.
I really do like how the campus is making sure every student is involved in voting because this is a really, really big election.
This is North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University's homecoming weekend. It's a weekend-long celebration of black culture, tradition, school pride, and community spirit. But there's extra buzz, with the November 5th vote just around the corner for this election battleground.
Back in band camp, actually, they wanted to make sure everybody was registered to vote. So we had a whole classroom on how to register,
Young Americans could play a crucial role in the race, with many voting for the first time in a presidential election.
I got to Howard when I went to college.
Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris is an HBCU grad herself. She and her Republican rival Donald Trump have both campaigned with an eye on young and undecided voters. They have invested heavily on political ads and taken multiple trips to battleground states, including Pennsylvania, Georgia, and North Carolina, where more than a dozen HBCUs are located.
We know that North Carolina is in desperate need of youth vote.
Tiffany Seawright is the Director of Leadership and Engagement at North Carolina A&T State.
We are pushing early vote, we are pushing the youth vote, we are pushing them to vote no matter where they are. In this moment, to see students actually start to stand up again, we've seen a turnaround towards the better.
While Harris has received strong support among young black women, Trump has reportedly gained traction among black men, a stat some Democratic strategists say has been exaggerated. A recent NAACP survey found from August to October, the percentage of black men under 50 likely to vote for Trump fell from 27 to 21%.
We had Barack Obama, the first black president, and it's time for a woman to take leadership. It's time. I think it's time.
HBCUs have long been cultural and political hubs among black communities. They were once the only places where black Americans could pursue higher education, when discriminatory laws barred them from attending predominantly white universities.
I'm really glad that as an HBCU student, I'm seeing firsthand people actually care about our country and they care about us as well.
4 days after torrential rains swept the eastern region of Valencia, The death toll from Spain's deadliest flash floods continues to rise. And with dozens of people still unaccounted for, Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez said on Saturday that it will likely increase further.
La situación que estamos viviendo es trágica.
The situation we are living in is tragic. It is dramatic. We are almost certainly talking about the most serious flooding our continent has seen so far this century. And I am aware that the response that is being given is not enough.
Sanchez said the number of people killed has now passed 209. That was the number killed in floods in Romania in 1970. Spain's tragedy is now Europe's worst flood-related disaster, since at least 500 people died in Portugal in 1967. Meanwhile, volunteers flocked to Valencia's City of Arts and Science Center for the first coordinated cleanup organized by regional authorities. The venue has been turned into a nerve center for the operation. The storm triggered a new weather alert in the Balearic Islands, Catalonia and Valencia, where rains are expected to continue during the weekend. Scientists say extreme weather events are becoming more frequent in Europe and elsewhere due to climate change. Meteorologists think the warming of the Mediterranean, which increases water evaporation, plays a key role in making torrential rains more severe.
A Moldovan security official accused Russia on Sunday of massive interference as voters cast their ballots in a tight presidential race. It's a runoff election that could see Moscow claw back influence in a country drawing closer to the European Union. Pro-Western incumbent Maia Sandu spoke of defending the country's sovereignty after voting in the capital, Chisinau. Thieves want to buy our voices, buy our country, but the power of the people is much greater than the power of evil, she said. Her pro-Moscow opponent, Alexander Stoyanoglu, said he voted for a Moldova that will develop good ties with both the West and the East. Brussels is closely watching the election after Sandu set Moldova on the long path of EU accession talks in June. It comes a week after Georgia, another ex-Soviet state seeking EU membership, re-elected a ruling party regarded in the West as increasingly pro-Russian. Moldova's future has been in the spotlight since Russia began its full-scale invasion in 2022 of neighboring Ukraine to the east. On Sunday, Sandu's national security advisor Stanislav Secrieru wrote on social media accusing Moscow of interfering in the election, warning it was, quote, an effort with high potential to distort the outcome. Secrieru cited reports of Moldovans being transported to vote in an organized and illegal way from a pro-Moscow breakaway region where Russia has soldiers stationed as peacekeepers. There was no immediate comment from Moscow, which has denied past allegations of meddling. The Moldova government has also accused Ilan Shaw, a fugitive oligarch living in Russia, of spending millions of dollars to pay off voters to oppose Sandu. It's said the meddling affected the election's first-round results on October 20th. Shaw has denied wrongdoing.
A suspected leak of classified Gaza documents involving an aide to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is jolting Israeli politics and leading to outrage for the families of hostages held by Hamas. A court ruling partially lifting a gag order has provided an initial glimpse of the case, which the court said had compromised security sources and may have harmed Israel's efforts to release the hostages. On Friday, the magistrate's court confirmed that a number of suspects had been arrested as part of a probe into a suspected, quote, security breach caused by the illegal provision of classified information. Dana Pugak, a lawyer representing the Forum for Families of Hostages, said on Sunday that the people have a right to know the information despite potential security issues.
For the last year, they have been waiting to hear any intelligence or any information about any negotiation about the release of those hostages.
Netanyahu has denied any wrongdoing by his office staffers and said in a statement on Saturday that he was only made aware of the document by the media. The suspects could not be reached for comment. Details from the document in question were published by Germany's Bild newspaper in September, according to Israeli newspaper Haaretz, one of the media outlets that had appealed to the court to lift the gag order. Around that time, the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt were mediating ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas that were to include a deal to release the hostages. But the talks faltered, with Israel and Hamas trading blame for the deadlock. The article in question was published days after 6 Israeli hostages were found executed in a tunnel in southern Gaza. Their killing sparked mass protests in Israel and from outraged hostage families, who accused Netanyahu of torpedoing the ceasefire talks for political reasons. On Sunday, the court ordered one suspect to be released while keeping others in remand, according to Israeli Channel 13 News. The third phase of a delayed polio vaccination campaign in Gaza resumed on Saturday after being derailed by Israeli bombardments, mass displacement, and lack of access. Families with young children queued for the vaccine at this clinic in Gaza City. The vaccination campaign began on September 1st after the World Health Organization confirmed that a baby was partially paralyzed by the type 2 polio virus in August. It was the first such case in the territory in 25 years. The WHO and the UN Children's Agency UNICEF said the area covered by the September agreement had been substantially reduced and would now only cover Gaza City. The final phase of the campaign had aimed to reach an estimated 119,000 children under 10 years old in northern Gaza with a second dose of an oral polio vaccine. Achieving this target is now unlikely due to constraints on access, according to a statement. Jamil Ali, the head of the clinic, says the reduced campaign impacts its effectiveness in preventing the spread of the disease. The Israeli Army's Palestinian Civil Affairs Agency Kogat said it was helping to coordinate the 3-day campaign. Once complete, it said there would be an assessment to decide whether to extend.